So today we'll be discussing some rare remedies of headache. Right? So we'll start with the first remedy, and that is epiphegus. It's a very rare remedy, and when needed, it gives very beautiful results, especially in headaches. So the main characters of epiphegus is that whenever you do any kind of work which is out of routine, means you are not usual to that work, and the moment you start doing that work which you are not usual to, you start having headache. It's a main characteristic. So the keyword for this remedy is out of routine. It's the unusual exertion. Exertion which you're not usual to, like shopping, like straining of eyes for the first time, or straining of eyes to the thing to which you're not accustomed. Very, very strong with this remedy. Mental exertion, fatigue. So fatigue always comes on when you are not doing your accustomed or your routine work. So the out of routine work, anything that you do, that brings on the headache. That brings on the complaints in epiphegus patients. And then once they get this kind of headache, this headache gets aggravated by straining of eyes. It gets aggravated by opening. It gets aggravated by slightest exertion. They cannot endure slightest exertion at that time. Say, for example, when they have to rise from lying down position. And then again, straining the eyes also aggravate the headache. It's a very, very strong remedy. But the idea behind all this thing is there has to be some work to which they are not accustomed. I had a case, the lady called me up with severe headache. It was so intense that she was hardly able to talk. And she was telling me that yesterday there was a party in our house. So usually what we do is we usually party always in the restaurant or in the banquet hall. But it's for the first time that all the people, the kitty members, they have to come into my house, and that was the first time. I was not used to it, and this first time when I did all the things, I used to serve, I was preparing food, I was doing all sorts of work. I was like kind of a say. She said, "I'm a bawarchi," and then today morning the headache started. She took painkillers, but nothing else relieved that headache. So the moment I asked what happened was, she said, this kind of work, I can do routine work, but this kind of work, which I was doing yesterday by serving all the kitty members, and that too, I myself was serving all the things, that bring on the headache. I was just this looking in the repertory, what remedy to give, what remedy to give, but the boric, I had this rubric, headache from unusual exertion, and this clicked my mind. Yes, this is a remedy. So interestingly, I had this remedy in a charged bottle in 200 potency. I gave the remedy, and she said within 5 minutes of taking the remedy, headache just vanished. So it was given in the Borix material medical. Let's see there if it is there. Mhm. See this boric, and there is sick headache coming on when deviating from ordinary pursuits. This is very, very specific for epiphegus. Even in the generalities chapter, if you read this book, so nervous headaches, especially bought in or made worse by exertion, shopping, etc. And when you look in the Fatex Materia Medica, there also it's written bought on or made worse by unusual exertion. So this is very, very specific for this kind of headache. And for those conditions, epiphegus becomes one of the specific remedies to give, right? And then this relieved headache is generally relieved by a good sleep. They have to sleep for a long period of time in order to get relief. It's very, very strong with epiphygus. So it's a rare remedy, small remedy, only given for this kind of specific headache. And it's very common. We can see there in India or in our country, it's very common because people here are accustomed to their routine job, routine work. And the moment they go out of routine, they come up with the headache. So this is epiphegus. Another remedy, and then with this headache, there's a concomitant. And that concomitant is either they will have some salivation with constant desire to spit, or there could also be blurred or dim vision with the headache. So this is very, very strong with chalybichromicum and iris versicolor also. But with those remedies, we have other concomitants. But with epiphygus, the main reason behind that headache would be this unusual or out of routine work, right? So another remedy that I took for study today will be menyanthes. Again, it's a very, very specific or rare remedy for headaches. But here, the main symptom is found not in the causation, but the main symptom of this remedy is found out in the concomitants. And that concomitant is icy coldness of hands and feet with the headache. The moment they come up with the headache, there is coldness of hands and feet. So we can differentiate here, or we can get confused this remedy with calcarea, because calcarea too have coldness of single parts. But with calcarea, this coldness of single parts is a general feature of that remedy with many complaints. But here, this concomitant in menyanthes is specifically with the headaches and in other one condition, that is fevers. And then other concomitant that we can find in this remedy is twitchings and jerking of muscles in different parts. Very, very strong. So this remedy does not have many symptoms. It has few symptoms. But when needed, this and this remedy will work for those conditions who come up with the headaches and who complain of icy coldness of hands and feet with the headache. So we often give in such patients, either we give calcarea, we give camphor, we give veratrum album, but those remedies have those concomitants with other conditions, but not with headache. But in menyanthes, this is very, very specific with headache only. So then the headache, the character of headache is it's kind of a heavy weight in the vertex, and this heavy weight it goes down into the nape of neck, and it gets aggravated by rest, and it's aggravated by ascending. So it's of a heavy weight which is put on the head, and then there's a very strong or peculiar character of amelioration, that is this kind of headache is relieved by putting pressure from both the hands. They just do like this, and the moment they release the hands, headache again starts. So they just have to lie down in this position by holding the head. The moment they hold or they release their hands, headache again starts. Very, very peculiar. Isn't it strange for this remedy? So this is menyanthes. And also this remedy is a beautiful remedy which is given in cases of fevers. Any kind of fever, and if the fever presents us with icy coldness of feet, icy coldness of hands, again it is indicated. So we can prescribe this remedy also in intermittent kind of fevers and in malarial fevers. And also it's a beautiful remedy given for side effects from abuse of quinine, which is given in malarial fevers. Very, very good. Again, very specific remedy for specific condition. Then another remedy that we are going to take up is onosmodium. It's not very rare, but it's common remedy. But here, again, the headache of onosmodium is always and always associated with eye strain. But the difference of eye strain in onosmodium and the difference of eye strain in epiphegus would be different. Eye strain of epiphegus was out of routine job, out of routine thing. But here the main causation is eye strain when you have to focus on a particular thing for a long time, like we see mobiles these days. It's a very good remedy for people who play PUBG, and while playing PUBG, they come up with a headache, because in PUBG you mostly hold the phone in one fixed position and for a very long time. So if it is headache, we have to think about monosmodium. But if it becomes cervical pain because prolonged use of mobile phone or sitting in one position for a very long time, if they come up with cervical, then the remedy is zincum metallicum. There's a difference. If it is headache from eye strain, constantly looking at one thing for a very long period of time, the remedy is monosmodium. But when it is cervical pains, by looking constantly at one thing and they come up with the severe cervical pains, then the remedy will zincum metallicum. And another strong causation for this remedy is sexual excesses. So this remedy have two main causes to develop headaches. One is eye strain and the other one is sexual excesses. And this kind of headache, it starts from the forehead, it runs into the eyes. It's like when the eyeballs, they burn. It's like the pain is going into the eyes. जिसे बोलते हैं कि आंखें बिल्कुल थक चुकी हैं. It's the weakness or the fatigue of the ocular muscles which brings on the headache. And with this headache, it then goes back into the upper limbs in the nape of the neck. The whole area, the upper limbs, nape of the neck, it becomes weak. It becomes ache. So there is also generalized weakness with the headaches. And then there is very strong lack of concentration and incoordination. So because of this, these people have very, very strong difficulty in focusing. They cannot focus anywhere. So because of this, this remedy then becomes a very, very specific remedy for myopias, which especially develop in the old age. Because the moment they fix their gesture on one thing, it brings on the headache. And the personality of these patients is also like that they cannot focus anywhere in their life. And then another very strong symptom of this remedy is psychical impotency. What is that? Which means there is no physical cause, there is no physical pathology. It's just in the mind where they have lost all the desire. And with this lost desire, there is general weakness, aching, tiredness, fatigue sensation in the body with when they constantly want to lie down, does not want to talk to anybody. There is loss of desire in females, right? So then there is loss of focus in life. Why? Because they always want change. Because they cannot fix their gaze into one thing. They cannot focus. Because focusing brings on the troubles. Why? Because the moment they focus, they are unable to judge. And there is a very strong feeling that something will happen. Something terrible is going to happen. There's only two strong symptoms in repertory. That there is lack of judgment as to the patient, as to the time and space, and then there is a very strong feeling of something terrible is going to happen. And because of these two symptoms, they lose focus in life. And that is why they often come up with business failures. Right? So the aggravation in these kind of headache is by ascending, by doing business. Why business? Because they are unable to focus in the business. They're always changing their business. They're not stable in the business. Because of the general weakness of judging, by incoordination of muscles, by difficult comprehension. And then again, sexual excesses becomes a major cause for such patients. And they cannot look fixedly at one point. They can even not focus for a long time for one thing. This is honest modeling. And they get relief by cold drinks. Very, very peculiar. So here we can confuse this remedy with phosphorus. Because phosphorus also wants to have cold drinks, but in monosmodium, it's specifically the headache which relieves the eye by cold drinks. And they are also relieved by sleep. And there's a peculiar symptom in the repertory. I was just going out to the rubrics of this remedy, and there was a rubric: head pain, redness of face ameliorates. What is that? So we can conclude here that the moment they develop headache, so there is general normal phase. But there is, when they begin to have this red face, headache starts relieving. This could be the phenomena, but I have not seen this anywhere. And this is the first time I have read this rubric. Head pain, redness of face, ameliorates. Then the another remedy of headaches is melilotus. We have discussed yesterday also when we were doing Bioline. But here we will do this remedy in detail. That melilotus have headaches which are relieved by hemorrhages. So the key word for melilotus is congestion, which is followed by hemorrhage. So we can say it's congestive headache, which is followed by epistaxis. And with that, there is flushed face, redness of the face, violent pulsating pains, and then there is bright red hemorrhages, very, very strong with melilotus. And then this kind of headaches, they are generally aggravated during dentition in children by mental exertion, by emotions, especially depressing emotions. So it becomes a very good remedy for stress headaches when they are developed due to some any kind of emotional mental excitement, and with that it is relieved by epistaxis. And because of this symptom, I have used this remedy in many cases of hypertension which gets aggravated or caused by some stress or tension in life. And with that stress or tension, they develop hypertension, they develop headache, and then they have nosebleed. So it is often told कि अगर आपकी नाक से खून निकल जाए, आपकी हाइपरटेंशन हुई है, तो chances are कि आपको brain stroke होने से आप बच गए. So this is the remedy which we can use in such conditions for hypertensions. With blood pressure they develop epistaxis. With blood pressure they develop hemorrhage, and then it also gets aggravated by sun. And then this kind of headache is relieved by epistaxis, by menses, and also by profuse urination. So here we have to make differentiation of this remedy with gelsemium. Gelsemium headaches are also relieved by profuse urination. But the difference between melilotus and gelsemium is, with the melilotus there is severe congestive pain, violent throbbing pain, but with gelsemium it is always a kind of dull pain, which makes them very tired, which makes them want to lie down all the time, which makes them very, very weak. And that is relieved by profuse urination. But with melilotus, it's a kind of very intense, severe headache, lots of congestion, redness of the face. And this redness of face is generally lacking in gelsemium. And clinically, this remedy could be used in cases of migraines, for hypertension, for epistaxis, for dysmenorrhea. Then we have another remedy, that is menis permum. Again, a very, very small rare remedy which belongs to Cocculus family, Menis permisi, which belongs to Ranunculales group of remedy. Now, this remedy again have a very, very strong characteristic, peculiar symptom, and that is, with the headache, they often stretch and yawn. Tremendous stretching and yawning with the headache. So we confuse here with Rostox, because in Rostox also there is stretching and yawning with generalized aching in the body. But with this remedy, it's specifically the headache which is associated with violent stretching and yawnings. And this headache is now also associated with aching in the whole back. So we can confuse here with Rostox. Very, very peculiar. With the headache, there is also restlessness. So now what's the difference between menis permum and Rostox would be, Rostox will have generalized aching of the body with stretching and yawning, which relieves the Rostox pains. But here, it does not relieve the headache. There is just the stretching and yawning with the headache. And most probably, this remedy also have aggravation from stretching during the headache. They want to stretch, they want to yawn, but the moment they stretch, it aggravates the headache. This is the major difference between menis permum and Rostox. And then there is restlessness. And this remedy also gets aggravated by emotions. So we can see here, if we see a personality who looks like Cocculus, but who comes up with a very strong symptoms of headache, then we should think about Nevis burner. And this remedy is relieved by walking in the open air. So these are the main remedies that I have selected to study. We'll be taking up more rare remedies